Hi guys, welcome to Geek Coding Academy. Today we'll see what is an exception handling in Java. So let's see the table of contents. So in this video, we'll see what you mean by an exception and what is try catch block and what is multiple catch blocks and what do you mean by an finally block, what are throw and throws keyword and what is a custom exception. So let's see. So what do you mean by an exception, guys? So exception means like we return a set of instruction in Java. So JVM will take care to execute instruction one by one. Suppose if any unexpected event occur during the program execution. Suppose our program needs some input, but that input is not available at the moment of execution. What happened? There will be that is an unexpected event. So that will be occur. The program will automatically automatically terminate. But program should not automatically terminate because like we have some of the resources opened. So suppose we are having an active database connection or active file read operation. Then if a program terminates automatically, that will be huge problem. So in order to avoid that, Java will provide a concept called exception handling. In these unexpected events occur, that time we could have used a try catch block. There are some keywords I'll explain you later. So if you have used that in Java, we can able to handle the situation accordingly. We can able to handle the situation accordingly, and we can close our important resources before terminating the program. So let's see what I mean by an exception. So exception in Java are events that disrupt the normal flow of program execution. This typically occur when a program encounters an unexpected situation, such as like invalid user input or trying to access an array element out of bound. Like if we have an array size of 3, if you are trying to access a fourth index of an array size of 3, then we'll get an array out of bound exception. Like means there is no element available for that array. Or an arithmetic exception, say as simple as like we are trying to divide a number by 0, it will cause us an arithmetic exception. Okay, Java provide a powerful mechanism for handling such errors, like using exception concept, like ensuring the program can gracefully recover or terminate properly without crashing unexpectedly. Okay, so when an exception occur, Java automatically creates an object, okay, of a class that inherits from the java.lang.Exception class. So Java has an inbuilt class called exception, which is located under java.lang.Exception. So what happened is Java will create an object of this exception class, and it will fill the information about like what is the error and like what type of error occur and where it has occurred, the exact location and everything, the stack trace, everything. So let's see. So what is the key concept of exception in Java? The root class of an exception hierarchy is actually throwable. It is also present in java.lang package. The throwable is the root class of this exception. These throwable has two subclasses. One is error and another one is an exception. So error means this is occurred due to some hardware failure. Suppose we are deploying an application in one cloud or one environment where it requires some amount of RAM space or some amount of hard disk space. Suppose that has exhausted or that has been overflowed. That time we'll get some error like an out of memory error that our program can't able to catch and it can't able to fix, right? This is something like hardware need to be scaled up or hardware need to be replaced within a bigger hard disk or something like that, right? So this we will be having a this type of issues we called as an error, which represents some serious issues that our application should not try to catch. We can't be possible. But exception means it represents some condition that our application might want to catch because we want to know like what causes apart from an hardware issue, like what causes like about a invalid data or we are trying to divide a number by 0 or anything stuff like that. So within the exception class, so we'll only consider on exception, we'll not worry about an error because error is nothing we as a developer we can't able to achieve that unless and until we should have an appropriate machines that supports that avoiding that error. We'll have an exception class, right? So under this exception class, we have another two subclasses. So one is checked exception and another is unchecked exception. Uh, two types actually. Checked exception means this is an exception which will be easily detected when we are doing a program, like when we are coding. The compiler will automatically suggest us to this exception may occur, and we need to define it in a method signature. Okay, like IO exception and SQL exception. So if you are doing any SQL related operation or input output related operation, it's a developer duty. Like we need to give a method signature that this exception may occur because we can able to predict those exceptions. What is unchecked exception means also called as a runtime exception where user can't able to predict or we can't able to declare these type of exceptions. Suppose like an null pointer exception that completely depend on user data. Like what user data come to an application as a developer we are not aware of. And array out of bound exception that is also similar to an input data. Okay, let's see the handling exception. Suppose we have an exception, like we know like some exception has occurred. We need to handle that situation. Like so to handling an exception in Java, there are several keywords. First, we need to understand what are these keywords is. First is try. Try keyword means we'll put a try and opening and close parentheses where we write some block of code. So that block of code we have to add so in such a way that there may be an exception occur. Like try means the block contains a code that might throw an exception. Okay, and catch is another keyword which use and in catch block is the code where we are handling that exception, which will be occurring in try block that we will handling in a catch block. So it contains code that is executed if an exception occur in only in try block. So catch block will executed only if there is an error occurred in try block. The finally. So the finally is also a block of code which always executed whether we get an exception or we are not getting an exception, regardless of whether an exception is thrown or caught. It typically like it is always executed. Why? Because it typically clean up actions like closing files or releasing any resources, etc. Throw. Throw means like it is a keyword which is used to explicitly throw an exception. Suppose like some of the exception as a user, as a developer, I need to throw it like some custom exception or some exception because based on your data validated, suppose like I got some data as an input, I validated it, and as per my coding requirement, that data is not available or the data is insufficient. So I will throw some exception. I can throw any exception class or subtype of exception classes. So that keyword will be used. Throws means that is used in method declaration to specify that the method might throw an exception. Okay. Suppose like I return a one method and method signature, I can give like a throws IO exception. That means that method may throw an IO exception. Okay. These are all the keywords syntax. Okay. Let's see actual example of an exception handling. Okay. So I return an exception example class, which is of type public. So the control flow enters here and I have a main method, which is public static of void. So I have, you can see guys here, I have written a try because I'm sure that this I have inside try, I have some block of code. I'm sure that this block of code will make it an exception. So I'm trying to divide 10, comma 0. Okay. So the divide method is actually up here. I have declared here where I'm dividing a by b, whatever the values. Like 10 by 0, obviously it will cause an arithmetic exception. So if we didn't got an exception, automatically we'll get a result. That result I'm printing up here. If exception occurred at this line, the program execution stops there and it will search for an appropriate catch block. So this is an arithmetic exception. So in a catch block, I'm having an arithmetic exception type, which is subclass of exception. So it will be catched up here and I will print this error, can't divide by 0. Okay. After that, the finally block will get executed. Whether exception or not, the finally is used to clean up any resources held or closing any connections. So the execution is completed. Okay. The try block contains code that might cause an arithmetic exception. Suppose like I'm dividing by 0, might cause. Okay. Always it doesn't cause it. It all relate to an input. So that's the reason we called it it as an unchecked exception or runtime exception. So the catch block catches an exception, print an error message, and final blocks ensure that the message like execution completed is printed whether there is an exception or not. Okay, we'll see. So you may ask like suppose if I have a block of code in try block, if I have a set of code in try block, so there may be more than one type of exception may occur, right? Sometimes like both IO exception or arithmetic exception or etc. etc. A lot of other exception may also occur. Like how can only one cache block we can able to differentiate? It's not possible, right? So like we have a different exception for a different class catch block. So that's the concept of multiple catch blocks. Okay. So in Java, we can able to handle different type of exception that might occur within a try block using a multiple catch blocks. Like each class catch block is defined for a specific type of exception. Okay. Allowing a program to respond appropriately to different error conditions. Suppose I get a IO exception in a catch block, I written some type of a code that will handle that. For an arithmetic exception, I written some type of code that will handle that. Okay, but there is some key points or some rules we need to follow in order to write a multiple catch blocks. What is the rule is a try block can be followed by at least one catch block or more than catch blocks. If we feel that the code inside a try block may cause multiple exceptions. Okay, each catch block can handle a different type of an exception. So when an exception occur in the try block, the JVM look for the first immediate catch block that matches the type of the exception. Okay, and execute it. Suppose if I get an exception, the JVM will stop the program execution at try block there itself, and it will go to catch block and it will check the first immediate matching catch block. Okay, so that's the reason the order of catch block must and should. So while writing in a multiple catch blocks, we need to write in such a way that subclasses should be come first and the generic or parent class should be at the last, because I already told you in the inheritance concept and runtime polymorphism concept, the parent reference can catch all the objects of a child class, right? So if any exception, suppose in catch block I return directly the parent catch block at the beginning. So any type of exception comes, JVM will go and check and it will match with the parent class can anyway catch child classes objects. So automatically it will match because exception is the parent class. So what we have to do is only like the subclasses we need to write first, then we need to go with the generic classes. That's the reason. Like order of catch block is important because exception subclasses should be caught before their parent classes. Okay. If you catch a super class like an exception first, then subclass exception like IO exception, arithmetic exception will not be reachable. Okay. So that anyway that lead to a compile time error. Compiler will throw an error because unreachable code. And as a developer, it's our duty to write a catch block appropriately. So let's see the example of multiple catch blocks. Suppose like I have one class, multiple catch example, which is a class and public class. So control enters through a public class here. We have a one main method, which is of type public start type void. And here in try block, I feel like there will be an exception maker. So I created one array numbers of integer array type and 1, 2, 3 is the value. And I'm trying to print the array of index 3. Usually in array, we start the index by 0. So this is the 0th index, first index and second index, but I'm trying to print the fourth element, that is third index element. So this will throw array out of bound exception. Okay. So automatically it will come here, array out of bound exception, and this will be printed up here. And the remaining catch block, it will ignore. Okay. So suppose if I don't have any error here, and it will come to this line where result is equal to 10 by 0. So this will throw an arithmetic exception. So it will come, it will ignore this. First, it will check this first catch block. It is array out of bound exception, right? So then it will check this arithmetic exception. The exception matches and it will print this one. And it will leave this generic exception. If none of the exception matches, it will check for this generic exception class because this is a parent of all type of exception. So automatically it will catch up here and it will print up here. So, okay. Okay. So yeah, this is all about catching a multiple block. Let's see Java 7 plus feature. So after Java 7 plus, Java team has introduced an ability to catch a multiple exception in a single block by separating an exception types with a pipe symbol. Okay. So these help to reduce the code duplication when handling a similar type of an exception. Suppose like same example, what I discussed in the previous, like any type of an exception, I have same logic, like even array index out of bounds also and arithmetic exception also. I have written the same sysout function like that is a cardinal exception. So why need to write one more time again? There will be redundancy of code, right? So after Java 7 plus, we can have a multiple exception in a same catch block. So I written one catch block where I written this array index out of bound or arithmetic exception. So any these two type of an exception occurs, this catch block will get executed. Rest all the generic exception class block should get executed. So this is one of the feature was introduced after Java 7. So this will help to reduce a code duplication while handling a similar type of an exception and a same catch block. So let's see the best practices. Okay, we need to handle specific exception first. That already I told you. Like when you try to write in a multiple catch blocks, first you need to give a specific related subclass of exception first. Then you go to higher level, and at finally you place a um, the parent exception class. So catch more specific exception first. Example, file not found exception before an IO exception, because IO exception is a parent class of file not found exception, and handle more generic exceptions later. Okay, general exception later, and log and handle exception appropriately. We don't just need to catch an exception without taking appropriate action. There is no need to catch an exception, right? Just only catching an exception is not sufficient. Always we need to provide a meaningful messages or logging, understanding the root cause of why this exception has occurred, and avoid catching exception unless necessary. Like catching an exception is useful in some cases, but can also hide some critical if overused. If we catch a lot of exception at then and there, it can hide some critical errors. So handling specific exception whenever possible for better debugging and control. Okay, we need to handle in such a way that only the exception causing code we need to bind with a try block. Simply the whole program we should not put it under a try block, so that will may prevent us from finding like where the critical errors are occurring. Okay, by using multiple catch block effectively, as a developer we can ensure that our program handle various error condition in a clean and controlled manner. Okay, instead of abrupting in middle. So these are about exception. So you may ask, like, we can create a custom exception. Yes, that is available in Java. Like Java will provide some of the subclasses, some of the already defined exception classes like IO exception, file not found exception, arithmetic exception, null pointer exception, etc. But we can also create our own type of an exception. Okay, that again depends on our application needs and requirements. So how to create a custom exception? Just it is as simple as like inheritance concept. Like we know exception class is the parent class. If you want to create any exception, that is custom exception, you just directly extend the exception class or runtime exception class. Okay, suppose like I created here one custom exception here, class custom exception, which extends a exception class. Means custom exception here is a child class and exception is a parent class. And here I return one method called a custom exception. This is like a constructor method here. This is a parameterized constructor because it is accepting a parameter called a message. And this message I'm passing to my parent, super of message. So already told this means current object, super means my parent object. Here my parent object is an exception. So I'm passing this message to my parent object, parent exception object. There we have a method, and in the exception, we will create one object. That object we have to throw through custom exception. So how to do that? We'll see. I created test custom exception class where I create a main method. This is our control for check of age 15. Okay, check age is the method I created. We returned in this class where I'm passing in age as 15, which will throw in a custom exception. I already told throws custom exception. Throws means we need to define in a method signature that this method may throw what type of an exception. In our case, it's a custom exception because the class name is custom exception. I am returning my own logic here. If the age is less than 18, I need to throw this custom exception that age must be 18 or above. Okay, I'm using a throw keyword here. We need to use throw keyword to throw any exception. Okay, I'm just creating in a class. Creating an object of this custom exception, new of custom exception, and I'm passing the message here. This message will be passed on using a super keyword. This message will be passed on to this its parent class, that is exception class, an object got created under exception class. That exception object I'm throwing up here. This throw will anyway already I have mentioned this method will throws this custom exception. So once I throw this object, whichever calling method of this, like calling method will be main method, which is calling this checkage. So this exception will throw up here in this try block, and the JVM will check for the first immediate catch block. Here in our case, we have only one catch block. It will check for here the custom exception. Anyway, we are throwing this custom exception only. So it will catch this exception and it will print the exception what message we sent, that age must be 18 or above. Okay. Let's see the benefit of exception handling. What is the benefit? We can error management, like helps in dealing with errors in a controlled and manageable way. Okay. And code separation, like we can separate error handling code from a regular code using catch block that improve readability, right? And graceful recovery. So which it allow the program to recover from an unexpected issues without terminating abruptly. Okay. So these are all some of the common built-in exception in Java, that null pointer exception, array index out of bound exception, class not found exception, IO exception, arithmetic exception. Okay. So these are all about theory, guys. Let's jump into practical. I'll open my IntelliJ. Yeah, guys. So I have created a class called exception handling demo here. As you can see, I created a class called exception handling demo. This is my main class. That's why it is appended. It has a public keyword. So the JVM control enters here and it will check for this main method. I have a main method written here. It will enter here where I have initialized an array. I have created a array variable numbers which is of type integer array, and I initialize them with these values 1, 2, 3. Okay. So here in system.out.println, I'm trying to access an array which is out like array in our array we have only a 3 element, that is its ranges from 0 to 2. Like array index always start from 0, but now I'm trying to access a array index of 3 where which is not exist. So I'm going to get an exception called array out of bound exception. So the control will check for the first immediate catch. So the first it will come for this catch block. Here I got this array index out of bound exception that will print the value up here. Later for this result also, I'm trying to divide a integer value by 0. Anything divided by 0 will throw an exception, arithmetic exception. So it will check for this catch block first. It is array out of bound exception. Then it will check for the second catch block, arithmetic exception. It will print up here. Okay. And both the cases, like this finally block, anyway, it will get executed irrespective of an exception. So this is for cleanup activity. This is for example of multiple catch block with different exceptions handling. So let's come for using a single catch block after Java 7. So if I get this an error, suppose I have a string, I have text variable which is of type string. I didn't initialize it. I initialized it with a null value. When I try to check the length of the text, which is not exist, I'll get a null pointer exception because it is null. There is no value present in this text, in the string. So if I try to check for the length of that string, I'll get a null pointer exception. And also similarly, 10 by 0, I'll get an arithmetic exception. Both null pointer and arithmetic exception, it will print the same because I have a same logic. Suppose you think of like that. I have same logic for both the type of an exception. In that case, simply writing a two catch block is a code redundancy. It will create simply like unnecessary code I have to written. Instead of that, after Java 7, uh, the Java team has given an option where we can able to add a multiple exception in the same catch block using these pipe symbol like R symbol. We can able to write this result. And after that, at last, the best practice is at last only we have to give the parent class exception because none of the exception is catched up here. Finally, it will come and catch the parent class exception. And finally, block will be used for cleanup activity. So this is all about handling multiple exception using a single catch block. Let's come to an example 3, catching like creating a custom exception. So I created one custom exception here, which extends an exception class, and I created a at the time of initialization, of this object, that is the constructor level. I'm created on parameterized constructor here, where I just taking in this input message, and I'm passing this message to my parent exception. Okay, so let's come back for the custom exception. So here in try block, I'm just checking the age 15. This method, actually the age should be, if age is less than of 18, I'm just making it as an age must be 18 or above. Otherwise, age is if age is more than 18, I'm making it as an age is valid. Otherwise, age is must be 18 or above. Like I'm restricting the user not to enter the application. Okay. So an exception caught up here, it will throw new of custom exception. That will be this what were custom exception we created. And I already told throws custom exception, like this method may throw custom exception. I already referred here. So it will throw new custom exception, age must be 18 or above. So it will be thrown to here, check age, and this check age, JVM will check for the immediate catch block which matches this custom exception. So the first block matches the custom exception, so it will print this out, the custom exception caught and message of this custom exception. And finally, the final block get executed. So this is all about exception, guys. Like, let's run the program and we'll see. Yeah, as you can see, when I try to access an array, I got an error called an access, like array out of bound exception, this exception. Later, finally block. First try catch block complete, this one. And caught an exception when I try to string dot length. When I try to this, like because text is null, caught an exception. And finally block, second try catch block complete. And for the custom exception, I passed here as an age is 15. So I got an exception called an age must be 18 or above. And third try catch block complete. Suppose if I give age as 18 only, like it should be, if at least 18 or 18 and above should be there. If I give it as an 18, sorry, if I run this program for the third catch block, you can see age is valid. And the finally block, anyway, it will get executed. That is for cleanup activity. So guys, I think this chapter is a little bulky, but I hope you understand the complete concept of exception and exception handling, how to write a custom exception, and how to handle the multiple catch block, exception through multiple catch block, everything. And you guys know like why we need exception in Java for the first place. Um, so I hope you guys understand clearly. If you have any doubts, please comment. I'm happy to help you. So if you like this video, please share this video to your friends and colleagues. And if you like the video, like the lecture, please subscribe to my channel. In my next video, I'll come up with the most advanced concept called as a collection concept. So I'll start the collection series in my next video. So till then, keep watching, keep learning. Thank you. Bye.